The wood beneath your bare feet is not merely warm, it is vibrating with a deep structural groan, a sound that never truly ceases day or night. This is the first lesson you learn when you leave the solid earth behind for a life at sea in the early 18th century. The ship is a living thing, but it is a dying thing, constantly rotting, constantly leaking, and constantly complaining under the stress of the Atlantic swell. You have been told stories of freedom. You have heard the whispers in the taverns of Port Royal or along the docks of London about men who rejected the tyranny of kings and captains to live by their own laws, awash in gold and sunlight. But standing here now, gripping the rough hemp of the rigging to steady yourself against the unpredictable lurch of the sloop, the reality begins to settle in your stomach, heavier than the salt beef you ate for breakfast. To understand why you are here and why anyone would choose this existence, one must first strip away the Hollywood veneer. There are no parrots here, vivid and talkative on shoulders. There are no hooks replacing hands that look polished and formidable. A lost hand here usually means a fatal infection or a life of begging in a gutter if you survive the amputation. There is only the relentless reality of labor. You are here because the alternative was worse. Perhaps you were a merchant sailor, tired of being cheated out of your wages by a dishonest owner in Bristol. Perhaps you were in the Royal Navy, where the discipline was enforced with a cat-o'-nine-tails, a whip that could strip the skin from a man's back until his spine was visible. Compared to that, this floating wooden box offers a strange, grim sort of democracy. But as the coast of the Americas fades into a gray smudge on the horizon, you realize that you have simply traded one prison for another. This prison, however, is surrounded by an endless, indifferent ocean that wants to kill you. The smell hits you before anything else. It is a scent that will seep into your pores, your hair, and your clothes until you can no longer smell it because you have become part of it. It is a thick, cloying mixture of unwashed human bodies, 80 men crammed into a space meant for 40, combined with the sharp tang of bilge water. The bilge is the very bottom of the ship, the dark, wet belly where ocean water leaks in and stagnates. It mixes with the excrement of rats, the drippings of rancid grease, and the waste of the crew that hasn't been pumped out yet. In the tropical heat of the Caribbean, this mixture ferments. It creates a vapor that can turn silver coins black in a man's pocket and makes your eyes water when you first descend below deck. This is the air you will breathe for the next 6 months. You look at your hands. They are already stained with tar. Tar is the lifeblood of the ship. It is what keeps the ocean out. Every inch of the rigging, every seam between the oak planks must be coated in this sticky black substance. It smells of burning pine and chemicals. It gets under your fingernails and never comes out. You will eat the taste of tar with your bread. You will smell it on your pillow, if you are lucky enough to have a pillow, which is usually just a canvas sack stuffed with straw or old oakum. The glamour of piracy is primarily a life of maintenance. A ship is a biodegradable object in an environment designed to destroy it. The salt eats the wood. The sun bleaches and cracks the canvas sails. The worms, Teredo nivalis, bore microscopic tunnels into the hull until the solid oak resembles a honeycomb, ready to shatter upon impact. So your day does not begin with a sword fight. It begins with the pump. The ship leaks. All ships leak. If they didn't leak, the wood would dry out and shrink, causing them to leak even more. It is a paradox. Every morning, and often in the middle of the night, you are woken not by a battle cry, but by the rhythmic clanking of the bilge pumps. It is back-breaking work. You stand in a line with other men, shirtless and sweating in the humid air, heaving a wooden handle up and down, hour after hour, just to stay afloat. The water that gushes out of the scuppers is foul, dark, and oily. This is the heartbeat of the vessel, the constant expulsion of death. If the pumping stops, the ship gets heavy. It becomes sluggish. Eventually, it sinks. You look around at your crewmates. They are a motley, ragged collection of humanity. The image of the pirate as a dashing figure in a velvet coat is reserved for the captains, and even then, only for the most successful ones on their best days. The men around you are wearing slops, loose-fitting trousers cut off at the knee, often made from old sailcloth because it is durable and free. They wear shirts that were once white linen, but are now stained a distinctive gray-yellow from sweat and lack of soap. Many are barefoot, their soles thickened into leather pads that can grip wet wood without slipping. Shoes are slippery and dangerous on a rolling deck. The diversity is striking, perhaps the only truly modern thing about this life. On a pirate ship, your background matters less than your ability to haul a line or fire a musket. You see men from England, Scotland, and Ireland fleeing poverty. You see runaway slaves from the sugar plantations of Jamaica and Barbados, men who have chosen the risk of the gallows over the certainty of the whip. There are Dutchmen, Frenchmen, and indigenous sailors from the Mosquito Coast who can spear a turtle or read the weather in the clouds better than any European navigator. You are all equal here, technically. Before the ship left port, you all gathered on the quarterdeck and signed the articles. This moment, the signing of the articles, was the most profound act of rebellion you have ever committed. It wasn't stealing gold, it was voting. In a world of absolute monarchs and divine rights, you and these dirty, desperate men created a constitution. You swore an oath, usually on a Bible, but sometimes, lacking a Bible, on a crossed pair of pistols or a boarding axe. The articles laid it out clearly. Every man has a vote in affairs of the moment. Every man has an equal title to the fresh provisions and strong liquors at any time seized. It sounds like paradise, but the articles also laid out the punishments. If you snap a pistol in the hold, create a spark near the gunpowder, you receive 40 lashes on the bare back. If you smoke a pipe without a cap on it below decks, the same. If you bring a woman or a boy on board in disguise, the penalty is death. The democracy is strict because the margin for error is 0. The sun is reaching its zenith now, hanging directly overhead like a hot white hammer. There is no shade on the deck. The shadows have retreated to the very edges of the bulwarks. The pitch in the deck seams begins to bubble, becoming soft and sticky. You can feel the heat radiating up through the wood. It is time for the midday meal. This, perhaps, more than the work, is where the horror of your survival truly begins. You gather in a mess of 4 to 6 men, sitting cross-legged on the planks between the cannons. There is no dining hall. You eat where you work. The cook, usually a man who has lost a leg or an arm and can no longer climb the rigging, brings out the food in a large wooden kid or bucket. Today, it is salmagundi. The name sounds exotic, almost French. The reality is a chaotic mixture of whatever was available. It is a base of chopped meat, could be beef, could be turtle, could be fish, mixed with wine, vinegar, garlic, onions, and oil. It is heavily spiced, not for flavor, but to mask the taste of the meat, which has likely begun to spoil. You dip your hardtack into the stew. Let us talk about the hardtack. It is a biscuit, technically, made of flour and water and baked until it is as hard as a brick. It is designed to last for years, and it does last in a sense, but it is not alone in the barrel. The ship's humidity penetrates the wood of the barrels, and with the dampness comes life. Weevils, curculio bugs, maggots. You tap the biscuit against the deck before you eat it. Tap, 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 to knock the insects out. The veterans don't bother. They tell you that the weevils taste bitter, but the maggots taste like nothing, and besides, it's fresh meat. More protein, they joke, showing gaps in their teeth where the scurvy has started to loosen the gums. You learn to eat in the dark or with your eyes closed, so you don't have to see what is crawling inside your dinner. You wash this down with bumbo or grog, a mixture of rum, water, and sugar, sometimes with a squeeze of lime if the captain is worried about health. The water in the casks turned green with algae weeks ago. It smells like a pond in summer. If you drink it straight, you will get the bloody flux, dysentery. The alcohol kills the bacteria, or at least makes you care less about drinking the slime. You are constantly slightly drunk. It is a requirement of the job. It dulls the boredom. It dulls the fear. It dulls the pain of sleeping on a hard deck. As the afternoon wears on, the wind dies. This is the doldrums. The sails flap uselessly against the masts with a sound like gunshot. Crack, crack. The ship loses its forward momentum and begins to wallow in the troughs of the waves. This is more dangerous than a storm. In a storm, you are busy. In a calm, you are trapped. The heat becomes suffocating. The air below decks stops moving entirely. The smell of the bilge rises up and sits on the deck like a fog. Tempers fray. You watch a man sharpen his knife for an hour, just sliding the blade against a whetstone, staring at the back of another man's neck. The psychological pressure of confinement begins to squeeze. You are 80 violent men with weapons, trapped in a space the size of a tennis court, with no way out and nothing to do but wait for the wind. You lean over the rail and look at the water. It is crystal clear, a deceptive, inviting blue. You want to jump in, to cool off, to wash the tar and sweat from your skin, but you don't. You can see the shapes moving deep down in the shadow of the hull. Sharks follow the ship. They have learned that ships mean food. They wait for the slops to be thrown overboard or for a man to lose his footing. They are the constant companions of the pirate, the silent escort. If you fall, the ship cannot turn around quickly. By the time they bring the sloop about, you will be gone. Night falls quickly in the tropics. There is no twilight, just a sudden extinguishing of the light. The stars come out, brilliant and unblinking, swaying in violent arcs above the mastheads as the ship rolls. Now the darkness is absolute. Lanterns are strictly forbidden below decks after dark because of the risk of fire. Fire is the greatest fear. A wooden ship, soaked in tar and carrying tons of gunpowder, is essentially a floating bomb. One spark, and you are all ash. So you stumble down the ladder into the pitch black of the berth deck. The sound of 80 men sleeping is a cacophony of bodily noises, snoring, coughing, groaning, flatulence. The hammocks are slung so close together that you bump shoulders with your neighbor every time the ship rolls. You are enveloped in the warmth of other bodies. It is intimate and repulsive. You can feel the lice moving on your scalp. They are inescapable. Everyone has them. You feel them crawling in the seams of your clothes. You scratch until you bleed, and then the salt sweat stings the open scratches. As you lie there, staring up into the invisible darkness, listening to the water rushing past the hull, inches from your head, you realize that the stories were wrong. This isn't an adventure. It is an endurance test.
You are waiting for a prize, for a merchant ship to appear on the horizon. But deep down, you know that even if you find one, the battle will not be a glorious duel. It will be a messy, smoky, screaming confusion of flying wood splinters and grape shot. And until then, there is only the rot, the pump, the heat, and the waiting.
The ship's bell rings. It is a sharp, metallic intrusion that cuts through the humid darkness of the lower deck. 2 bells. It is 5 a.m., or perhaps 1 a.m. It barely matters. Time on a pirate ship is not measured in hours, but in watches. You live your life in 4-hour blocks. 4 hours of back-breaking labor, followed by 4 hours of fitful, interrupted sleep. You are permanently exhausted. This is the sleep deprivation torture of the 18th century, but here it is simply called Tuesday. You roll out of your hammock, landing on the damp wood with a thud. Your joints crack. Your back aches from the curve of the canvas. You are already sweating, and you haven't even moved yet. You make your way up the ladder to the upper deck, blinking as your eyes adjust. If it is dawn, the light is gray and watery. If it is night, the moon provides the only illumination, casting long, moving shadows across the sails. Your first destination is the head. In the mythology of pirates, you never see anyone use the bathroom. In reality, it is one of the most dangerous parts of your day. The head is located at the very front of the ship, the beakhead, extending out past the hull over the rushing water. There is no privacy. There is no plumbing. There are simply wooden slats with holes cut into them, the seats of ease, perched precariously over the open ocean. You have to climb out there, gripping the rails, with the ship pitching violently beneath you. The spray from the bow wave hits you constantly. If a rogue wave strikes while you are vulnerable, you can be washed clean off the ship. Many good sailors have died simply trying to relieve themselves. And there is no paper. You use a tow rag, a piece of frayed rope dangling into the ocean water to rinse itself off. It is wet, rough, and encrusted with salt and barnacles. The salt water stings. Every part of this life is an abrasion. Hygiene is a constant battle you are destined to lose. Fresh water is liquid gold. It is strictly for drinking. You would never waste a drop to wash your face or your clothes. So how do you wash your single shirt? You use the only cleaning agent available in abundance, urine. The crew saves their urine in a barrel called the piss dale. Urine contains ammonia. It is a powerful bleaching agent and degreaser. You soak your stiff, greasy clothes in a bucket of stale urine, scrub them against the deck, and then rinse them in the ocean. When you put the shirt back on, even after it dries, it carries a faint chemical scent of ammonia mixed with the sea. You are walking in a cloud of your own biological waste. But the dirt on your skin is the least of your worries. The real enemy is inside you. As the weeks turn into months without fresh produce, a silent, creeping horror begins to take hold of the crew. It starts with lethargy. You feel heavy, as if gravity has doubled. Then the spots appear, small, dark red bruises on your legs where the hair follicles are. This is scurvy. Scurvy is not just a vitamin C deficiency, it is the disintegration of the body. Collagen, the glue that holds your tissues together, stops being produced. Your gums begin to swell. They turn a dark, necrotic purple and grow over your teeth. Your breath smells like a corpse. If you press your finger into your flesh, the indentation remains, the skin refusing to bounce back. But the most terrifying symptom is the past coming back to haunt you, literally. Because your body can no longer maintain scar tissue, old wounds break open.
A cut on your arm from a knife fight 10 years ago, which had healed into a white line, suddenly splits open as if it happened yesterday, bleeding fresh blood. Broken bones that knit together years ago dissolve and separate. You are unhealing. If the scurvy doesn't get you, the great pox might. Syphilis is rampant among the crew. In the chaotic ports of Tortuga or Nassau, pleasures were cheap and dangerous. Now, weeks later at sea, men are complaining of aches in their bones. They develop rashes on their palms. The treatment is almost as bad as the disease. The surgeon, if you are lucky enough to have one, will administer mercury. A night with Venus, a lifetime with Mercury, goes the saying. They inject it into the urethra or rub it into the skin. The mercury makes your teeth fall out, your hair drop in clumps, and drives you slowly insane. You see men muttering to themselves at the rail, their minds eaten away by heavy metal poisoning, staring at the horizon for islands that aren't there. Let us speak of the surgeon. On a merchant ship or a navy vessel, the surgeon is an officer. On a pirate ship, he is a precious cargo. Often he is a man who was kidnapped from another ship and forced to join. "We need your skills," the captain would say, pointing a pistol at the doctor's chest. The surgeon's tools are laid out in the cockpit, a space below the waterline where it is safest from cannon fire. He has no anesthesia, no chloroform, no morphine. He has rum. If you are to be operated on, you are given a leather strap to bite on so you don't shatter your teeth from screaming. The surgeon's kit looks more like a carpenter's toolbox than a medical station. There is the bone saw, heavy and rusted. There is the catling, a double-edged knife for slicing through muscle. There are cauterizing irons, which are heated red-hot in a brazier of coals to sear the stump of an amputated limb to stop the bleeding. The smell of burning human flesh is distinct. It is sweet and pork-like, and once you smell it in the enclosed space of the cockpit, you never forget it. Most men die not from the wound, but from the hospital fever, gangrene or sepsis. The surgeon washes his hands in the same bucket of water he used for the last 3 patients. He wipes the blood from his saw with a dirty rag. Infection theory is 200 years in the future. They believe infection comes from miasma or bad air. They don't know that the invisible killers are swarming on the unwashed steel. But despite these horrors, the morning work must continue. You are assigned to holystone the deck. This is a ritual of cleaning that borders on obsession. The wooden planks must be kept wet to prevent shrinking, and they must be kept clean to prevent rot. You kneel on the hard wood with a block of sandstone, the Bible, so called because you are on your knees as if in prayer. You scrub the planks in circles, grinding the stone against the wood with sand and water. Scrub, scrub, scrub. The grit eats into your knees. The salt water softens your skin until it peels away. You do this for hours under the rising sun, your back burning, until the deck is white and smooth.
Why such discipline on a pirate ship? You thought this was a life of anarchy. It is not. A pirate captain holds power only as long as the crew allows him to. But the crew knows that a dirty ship is a slow ship, and a slow ship gets caught by the British Navy. So you scrub. You splice ropes, you repair the sails, sitting cross-legged with a heavy needle and a leather palm to push it through the thick canvas. Your fingers are calloused and pricked 1,000 times. By mid-morning, the boredom sets in again. This is the true enemy of the pirate. Battles are rare. The moments of terror are few. The vast majority of your life is staring at an empty blue circle. To pass the time, the men gamble, dice made from bone, cards so greasy they stick together. They bet their share of the future plunder. They bet their rations of grog. Fights break out.
sudden and violent. A knife flashes. A man goes down, clutching his belly. Here, the pirate code, the articles, intervenes again. Fighting on board is forbidden. If you have a grievance, it must be settled on land. But waiting is hard. The tension on the ship is palpable, a vibrating string ready to snap. You watch the horizon, desperate for a sail, for a plume of smoke, for anything that breaks the monotony of the blue. And then, just as you are about to lose your mind from the repetition, the lookout high above on the crosstree screams the words that send an electric shock through every man on deck. "Sail ho! Off the starboard bow!" The lethargy vanishes. The sickness is forgotten. The ship wakes up. The beast is hungry.
The cry of "sail ho" does not result in immediate chaos. In the movies, the scene cuts instantly to the clashing of steel. In reality, the pursuit of a prize is a slow, grinding process of geometry and physics. It is a game of angles played out on a chessboard of shifting water. You do not rush to the cannons, you rush to the ropes. The chase is not a sprint, it is a marathon that can last for 10 hours or even days. The ship you are chasing, a fat, slow-moving merchant vessel, likely a Guineaman or a sugar transport, is miles away, a mere speck of white canvas against the blue sky. But she has seen you too. You see her sails shift as her captain tries to turn away to catch the wind and run. Now begins the labor. To catch her, your sloop must squeeze every ounce of energy from the breeze. The quartermaster barks orders, his voice cracking like a whip. "Wet the sails," he commands. This is a grueling task. Dry canvas is porous. It lets some of the wind pass through the weave. Wet canvas is heavy and airtight. It captures every breath of air. You and your crewmates form a bucket brigade, hauling seawater up from the ocean and dousing the sails. The heavy, sodden cloth pulls at the masts, making the wood groan under the strain. The heel over, the rail burying itself in the froth. You are working harder now than at the pumps. Your muscles burn as you haul on the braces, adjusting the yardarms by inches to optimize the angle of the wind. The sweat pours off you, mixing with the spray, but no one complains. Greed is a powerful motivator. That speck on the horizon represents retirement. It represents a week of drinking in Nassau. It represents survival. As the hours drag on, the speck grows. It resolves into a shape. 3 masts, a high stern castle. You can identify her now. She is likely British or Dutch. She sits low in the water, which is good. A ship sitting low is heavy. A heavy ship is full of cargo. If she were riding high, she would be in ballast, empty of everything but gravel and rats. You pray for sugar, for tobacco, for indigo. You pray she is not carrying slaves. A slave ship is a nightmare for a pirate. Human cargo is difficult to manage, prone to disease, and hard to sell without getting caught. Pirates want goods that don't eat and don't rebel. Now comes the ritual of clearing for action. A ship in transit is a cluttered place. There are hen coops on the deck for fresh eggs. There are hammocks strung up. There are barrels lashed to the rails. All of this must go. If a cannonball hits a chicken coop, the wood splinters become deadly shrapnel. So you throw everything unnecessary overboard. The chickens, the pigs, the extra lumber, it all goes into the wake. The ship is stripped down to its fighting skeleton. Below decks, the scene is even drasticer. The bulkheads, the thin wooden walls that separate the captain's cabin and the officers' quarters, are knocked down. They're designed to be removable. Suddenly, the ship is one long, open tunnel from bow to stern.
This allows for better communication and airflow during the heat of battle. It also turns the entire deck into a slaughterhouse floor. You are handed a bucket of sand. You know what this is for. You scatter the sand across the wooden planks of the deck. This is not for cleaning, it is for traction. When the blood starts to flow, wet wood becomes as slippery as ice. Without the sand, you would slip in the gore of your friends and fall. The sand gives your bare feet purchase. It is a grim, practical preparation. You are literally preparing the ground for death. Next, the weapons are distributed. This is not a uniform military unit. There is no standard issue. You grab what you own or what is available from the common chest.
Consider the cutlass. It is not the elegant, thin rapier of a nobleman. It is a thick, short, heavy blade, often curved like a cleaver. It is designed for a crowded deck where you don't have room to lunge. It is designed to hack through thick ropes, heavy canvas, and human bone. It is more of an axe than a sword. It has a heavy brass shell guard to punch a man in the face if you are too close to swing. It is a brutal, ugly tool. You might pick up a boarding axe. This is a terrifying hybrid, a heavy axe blade on one side for smashing through doors and masts, and a long curved spike on the back for hooking into the wood of the enemy ship to climb up the hull, or for driving into a man's skull. Then there are the grenados. These are primitive hand grenades, hollow iron spheres filled with black powder and a fuse. You have to light the fuse with a slow match, a piece of burning rope you carry in your teeth or clipped to your belt. The timing is guesswork. Throw it too soon, and they might throw it back. Throw it too late, and you lose your arm. As the distance closes to within a mile, the psychological warfare begins. This is the part the history books often gloss over. Pirates did not want to fight. Fighting is expensive. Fighting damages the ship you are trying to steal. Fighting kills the crew you need to sail it. The goal was terror. You wanted the prey to surrender without firing a shot. The quartermaster goes to the flag locker. For most of the chase, you have been flying a false flag, perhaps the Union Jack or the French fleur-de-lis, to confuse the prey, to let you get close without them panicking. But now the ruse is dropped. The friendly colors are hauled down, and up goes the black. The Jolly Roger. It flaps in the wind, a stark black rectangle with white symbols. It wasn't always a skull and crossbones. Every captain had his own design. Calico Jack Rackham had a skull with crossed swords. Blackbeard had a skeleton spearing a heart. But the message was universal. Surrender, and you will be given quarter. Mercy. Resist, and we will kill everyone. You watch the merchant ship through the rigging. You can see the panic on their decks. They are running out their cannons. They are arming their crew, but they are terrified. They know who you are. They know that you are desperate men with nothing to lose. The silence on your ship is heavy. No one speaks. The only sounds are the creaking of the wood, the wind, and the washing of the water. The gun crews stand by the cannons, the slow matches smoking in the tubs. The cannons are loaded not just with round iron balls, but with langrage, a mixture of scrap iron, nails, and glass. This isn't meant to sink the ship. It is meant to shred the sails and the people on the deck. You are now within shouting distance. The pirate captain, standing on the quarterdeck, raises a speaking trumpet to his lips. His voice booms across the water. "Ho! The ship ahoy! Heave to, or we sink you!" It is the moment of truth. You watch the merchant captain. He stands paralyzed. He looks at his crew, terrified, underpaid sailors who have no desire to die for a shipment of sugar. He looks at your ship, bristling with 80 screaming madmen and dark iron cannons. If he strikes his colors, pulls down his flag, it is over. You board, you take the loot, you drink their rum, and you leave. But today, the merchant captain is stubborn.
Or perhaps he is foolish, or perhaps he owns a share of the cargo and cannot bear to lose it. You see a puff of white smoke from the merchant ship's stern chaser gun. A second later, the sound reaches you, a dull thud. A splash of water erupts 20 yards from your bow. They have fired a warning shot. They are going to fight. A groan goes through your crew. Now it gets messy. Now comes the noise. The pirate captain doesn't hesitate. He signals the gunner. Fire! The deck beneath your feet jumps as the 6-pounders roar. The smell of sulfur, rotten eggs, and hellfire instantly fills the air, burning your throat. Smoke obscures your vision. Through the gray haze you hear the splintering of wood as your iron shot smashes into their rail. The scream of a man echoes across the water. The boring part of the day is over. The slow grind of survival has shifted into the high-speed chaos of violence. You draw your cutlass. The metal is cold in your sweaty palm. The ships are converging, drifting together like two clumsy dancers. The grappling hooks are ready. You are about to jump from one moving object to another, over a gap of churning ocean, into a wall of musket fire. You take a breath of the smoke-filled air. It tastes like copper.
The collision, when it comes, feels like an earthquake. The wooden hull of your sloop slams against the side of the merchant vessel with a grinding, tearing screech that sets your teeth on edge. The sheer mass of tons of oak and iron meeting in the open ocean throws you off balance. You grab a shroud line to keep from being tossed across the deck. Above you, the yards tangle. Rigging snaps with the sound of whip cracks, raining blocks and tackle down onto the heads of men on both ships. This is the moment of maximum danger. You are not on solid ground. You're on two heaving platforms, grinding against each other in the swell, rising and falling out of sync. The gap between the ships is a churning maw of dark water. If you slip as you jump, you will not simply fall into the sea. You will be crushed between the two hulls, your body snapped like a dry twig as the ships come together again. "Board! Board!" the cry goes up. Grappling hooks are hurled. These are 4-pronged iron claws attached to heavy ropes. They clatter onto the enemy deck, biting into the rail, the wood, or the rigging. You and your crewmates heave on the lines, winching the two vessels locked together in a deadly embrace. You scramble up the rail. The air is no longer air. It is a thick, stinging fog of black powder smoke. It burns your eyes instantly, making them stream with tears. You cannot see more than 5 feet in front of you. The Hollywood duel is a lie, because in a real sea battle, you are fighting blind. You cough, choking on the sulfur, and swing your leg over the bulwark of the merchant ship. You land on their deck, sliding on the sand and the slickness. The noise is a physical weight. It is not just the boom of the cannons now, but the popping of pistols, the screaming of men, and the terrifying, dull thud of heavy iron crunching into timber. You don't fence. There is no room to fence. You are in a crush of bodies. You swing your heavy cutlass like a hatchet, hacking at anything that isn't wearing the ragtag slops of your crew. You see a merchant sailor in front of you. He is young, perhaps 18, his face pale with terror. He holds a boarding pike, a long spear, shaking in his hands. He thrusts it at you. You parry it with the heavy brass guard of your cutlass, the metal ringing. You don't try to stab him. You step inside his reach and punch him in the face with the brass hilt. He goes down. You don't kill him. There is no time, and besides, a dead man cannot tell you where the cargo is hidden. The fight is brutal, nasty, and short. Most merchant crews are not soldiers. They are poorly paid sailors who have no interest in dying for a cargo of molasses that belongs to a rich man in London. Once the pirates swarm the deck, looking like demons out of the smoke, the resistance usually crumbles. "Quarter!
"We ask for quarter," the merchant captain shouts, throwing down his sword. The violence stops as quickly as it started. The sudden silence is jarring. Your ears are ringing, a high-pitched whine that drowns out the wind. You are panting, your heart hammering against your ribs like a trapped bird. You look at your hands, they are shaking uncontrollably. This is the adrenaline dump. You feel nauseous. You checked yourself for holes. In the confusion, you might have been shot or stabbed and not even felt it yet. You wipe the soot from your face, leaving streaks of black grease. Now, the romance of piracy evaporates entirely, and the reality of logistics takes over. You are no longer a warrior. You are a stevedore. You are a mover. The battle is over, and the work begins. The hatch covers are ripped off the merchant ship's hold. You stare down into the dark cavern of the cargo bay. The smell wafts up, a mix of damp wood, spices, and bilge. The quartermaster takes charge. He is the accountant of the ship, the man who ensures the articles are followed. He descends into the hold with a lantern, and you follow. This is the treasure you have risked your life for. There are no chests of Spanish gold. There are no emerald necklaces. Instead, you find crates of calico cloth. You find barrels of nails. You find sacks of pimenta and cocoa. You find hogsheads of sugar. This is a floating general store. The disappointment is a familiar taste, but you swallow it. These goods are valuable, but they are heavy. You spend the next 4 hours in the stifling heat of the hold, hoisting heavy barrels onto your shoulders, climbing ladders, and passing them across the perilous gap to your own ship. It is grueling manual labor. Your back spasms. Your hands, already raw from the ropes, are now filled with splinters from the crates. "Careful with that brandy," the quartermaster barks. Liquor is the immediate prize. The crew breaks open a cask of wine immediately. This is technically against the rules during the transfer, but no one stops it. You dip a cup into the barrel and drink. The wine is warm and tastes of oak, but it cuts the dust in your throat. It helps steady your shaking hands. But there is a darker looting taking place on the deck. The pirates are lining up the merchant crew. They are not looking for jewelry. They are looking for skills. "Who here is a carpenter?" the pirate boatswain asks, walking down the line of terrified captives. A man steps forward, trembling. I am, sir." "Get your tools. You're with us now."
This is impressment. The pirates need skilled labor. A cooper, barrel maker, a carpenter, a surgeon, a musician. These men are often forced to join the pirate crew against their will. They are valuable commodities, worth more than the sugar. The rest of the merchant sailors are stripped of their shoes, their coats, and their navigational instruments. Pirates are always in need of shoes. You look at the feet of the captives. If you see a pair of boots that fits you, you take them. The man who owned them is now barefoot. It is cruel, but it is pragmatic. Then comes the question of the ship itself. The pirate captain and the quartermaster inspect the prize. Is it faster than your current sloop? Is it in better condition? If so, you might swap ships. You might take the merchant vessel as your new home and sink your old, rotting sloop. But today, the merchant ship is a tub, slow, barnacle-encrusted, and leaky. So you take what you can carry. You take the gunpowder. You take the food, barrels of salt beef that might be slightly less rotten than your own. You take the candles and the soap. You take the needles and thread. And then you have to decide what to do with the leftovers. If the merchant captain was polite and surrendered quickly, you might leave him his ship and enough water to reach the nearest port. If he fought back and killed one of your friends, the mood turns darker. Today, the captain was stubborn. He fired that warning shot. He cost you a man, old Tom, who is currently bleeding out on your deck with a grape-shot wound to the thigh.
The pirates are angry. "Sink her," the quartermaster says. You return to your ship. The grappling hooks are released. But before you pull away, the gunners run out your cannons again. This time they aim low, at the waterline of the merchant ship. Boom, boom, boom. The cannonballs smash through the oak planking just above the waves. Water begins to rush into the merchant vessel. You watch as she begins to list. The merchant crew is huddled in their longboat, which you graciously allowed them to lower. They are rowing away frantically, watching their livelihood disappear beneath the Atlantic. As your ship turns to catch the wind, leaving the debris and the sinking hulk behind, you feel a strange emptiness. The adrenaline is gone. The work is done. You are exhausted. You are covered in sweat, soot, and the blood of a stranger. You have won. But what have you won? Your share of the sugar and the cloth will be calculated later. It might amount to 10 pounds sterling, enough for a week of high living in Port Royal or a new pistol. For this, you risked hanging. For this, you killed. You go below decks. The ship feels heavier now, laden with the stolen cargo. It rides lower in the water. The smell of the bilge is joined by the sweet, cloying scent of the stolen cocoa. You collapse into your hammock, too tired to even take off your stolen boots. You close your eyes, but the image of the young sailor's face when you punched him plays behind your eyelids. And then the bell rings. It is time for your watch. You have to scrub the blood off the deck before it stains. The life of a pirate is not about the treasure. It is about the chores. The adrenaline has fully faded now, leaving behind a cold, aching numbness in your limbs. The sun is dipping towards the western horizon, painting the sky in bruises of purple and orange, a stark contrast to the grim work happening on the deck. You are on your knees again. This morning you were holy stoning the wood to keep it white. Now you are scrubbing it to remove the evidence of violence. Blood, when it dries on oak, turns a rusty, stubborn brown. It seeps into the grain. You have to scrub hard, using vinegar and sand until your arms tremble. If you don't clean it perfectly, the flies will come, and in the tropics, flies bring maggots within hours. The ship must be spotless, not for vanity, but for sanitation. While you scrub, a low, rhythmic grating sound drifts up from the hatchway near the mainmast. It is a sound like a carpenter sawing through a piece of wet firewood. But you know it is not firewood. It is the sound of the surgeon at work in the cockpit. Old Tom, the man who took the grape shot to the thigh, is losing his leg. You cannot help but imagine the scene below. You have seen it before. The cockpit is the darkest, most stifling part of the ship, painted red so the blood doesn't show as much on the walls. Tom is laid out on the operating table, which is just a plank set across two chests. He has been given a leather strap to bite on, and perhaps a pint of rum has been poured down his throat, but that is all the mercy available. The surgeon, his apron stiff with the dried blood of previous patients, has applied a tourniquet, a twisted rope, tight around Tom's upper thigh to stop the flow of life. He works with terrifying speed. Speed is the only way to save the patient from dying of shock. First, the curved knife slices through the skin and muscle in one clean sweep. The flesh retracts. Then comes the saw. That is the sound you hear now, the teeth of the saw biting into the femur. The surgeon must saw steadily. If he hesitates, the bone will splinter. You try to block out the sound, focusing on the grain of the wood under your brush. Scrub, scrub, scrub. A few minutes later, the smell hits you. It is the smell of cauterization. The surgeon has taken a hot iron from the brazier and pressed it against the raw stump to seal the arteries. It smells like cooking pork. Your stomach turns, but you keep scrubbing. This is the cost of the business. Tom will now be a cook, or a lookout, or perhaps just a beggar in Tortuga, but he gets extra shares of the loot for his loss. The articles are clear. If any man shall lose a joint in time of engagement, he shall have 400 pieces of 8. If a limb, 800. It is a primitive form of workers' compensation insurance. Once the deck is clean and the sun has vanished, the ship settles into a strange, heavy quiet. The excitement of the capture is replaced by the mundane reality of administration. The quartermaster calls for the distributor. It is time to inventory the plunder. You gather around the mainmast, where the goods from the merchant ship have been piled. This is not a scene of drunken revelry. It is a scene of tedious accounting. The quartermaster holds a ledger. He wears spectacles, looking more like a London clerk than a sea rover. He tallies every bolt of cloth, every barrel of nails, every ounce of gold dust. Item, 6 bolts of fine blue calico, he announces. He writes it down. Item, 2 hogsheads of Virginia tobacco. He writes it down. Item, 1 navigational quadrant, brass. He writes it down.
Nothing is hidden. If a man is caught withholding even a single silver coin, the punishment is marooning. He would be left on a deserted sandbar with a bottle of water and a pistol with 1 shot. It is a slow, lonely death. So honesty is enforced by terror. The loot is not divided yet. It must be sold first. The ship is now a floating warehouse, cluttered and heavy. You will have to sail to a fence, a shady merchant in a friendly port who will buy these stolen goods for a fraction of their value. Until then, you are just guarding boxes. Night has fully taken the ship. The wind has picked up, blowing fresh and cool, scrubbing the lingering smell of sulfur and burnt flesh from the air. You are off watch now. You descend into the berth deck. It is crowded as always, but tonight the mood is different. The men are exhausted, but there is a hum of satisfaction. They are alive. They have won. You find your hammock. It is a canvas cocoon slung tight. Getting into it is an art form. You have to hop up, twist your body, and slide in without tipping over. Once inside, the sides wrap around you like a straitjacket. This is intentional. It keeps you from falling out when the ship rolls 30 degrees to the side. You lie there, swinging gently in the dark. The ship is a cradle, rocked by the ocean. The sounds of the vessel are magnified in the darkness. You hear the water rushing past the hull, inches from your ear, a constant swoosh, swoosh. You hear the creaking of the timbers, the groan creak of the ribbing as the ship flexes. Above you, on the deck, you hear the slow, rhythmic footsteps of the watch. Thump, thump, thump. You close your eyes. Your body feels heavy, sinking into the canvas. The phantom motion of the sea is in your inner ear. Even when the ship is relatively still, you feel like you are moving. You think about the day, the fear, the noise, the smell of the hot iron. It all seems like a dream now.
The only reality is the sway. Sleep comes quickly to a sailor, but it is a light, fragile sleep. You are always listening. Your brain is tuned to the frequency of the ship. If the wind changes, the sound of the rigging changes, and you will wake up. If the rhythm of the waves changes, you will wake up. You are never truly unconscious. You are just on standby. But for now, the rhythm is steady. The ocean is calm. The horrors of the day are written in the ledger and scrubbed from the deck. You drift down, down into the black, rolling deep of your own exhaustion. And tomorrow you will wake up and pump the bilge again.
Days turn into weeks. The excitement of the capture fades into the gray, repetitive blur of the horizon. The ship, now laden with the heavy cargo of stolen sugar and tobacco, sits lower in the water. She feels sluggish. She answers the helm slowly, like an old dog that is tired of running. The captain notices it. The quartermaster notices it. But most importantly, you notice it in the vibrations of the wood through your bare feet. The ship is dragging. It is time for the most dreaded yet essential operation in a pirate's life: careening. You cannot go to a dry dock. Dry docks belong to the Royal Navy and the wealthy merchant companies in London or Boston. You are a criminal. If you sail into a major port for repairs, you will be arrested and hanged. So you must find a wild, hidden place. You sail toward the Mosquito Coast or a secluded cay in the Bahamas, looking for a shallow, sandy inlet surrounded by mangroves. You need a place where the water is calm and the trees hide your masts from passing patrols. When you find the spot, the labor begins. It makes the pumping and the scrubbing seem like a holiday. You sail the ship as close to the beach as possible until the keel gently grinds into the sand. Then you unload everything, and I mean everything. The cannons, which weigh thousands of pounds, must be hoisted up and swung onto the beach or onto rafts. The barrels of water, the gunpowder, the heavy shot, the spare sails, and the stolen cargo, it all has to come off. The ship must be completely empty, a hollow shell. Then comes the heaving down. You attach heavy block and tackle pulleys to the mastheads and tie the other ends to the sturdy mangrove trees on the shore. Then 80 men pull. You pull until the ship literally tips over. It rolls onto its side, exposing the reddish-brown underbelly that is usually hidden beneath the waves. This is the only time you see the true enemy. The hull is not smooth wood. It is a grotesque garden of marine life. Barnacles, hard as stone and sharp as razors, cover every inch. Long, slimy weeds trail down like the hair of drowned men. And there are the wormholes, the tiny punctures where the teredo worms are eating your home from the inside out. The smell is overpowering. It is the stench of exposed, dying sea life baking in the tropical sun. It smells of rot, iodine, and mud. You are handed a scraper, a heavy iron tool on a long pole, and you wade into the waist-deep water, or if the section is high enough, you stand on the slippery, curved side of the hull. You scrape, 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 scrape. You have to chip off the barnacles by hand. It takes hours. The shells fly off, cutting your shins and arms. The slime coats your skin. Once the wood is bare, you have to bream it. You build fires of palm fronds and pitch right there against the wet wood. The heat kills the worms inside the planks and dries the timber. The
The smoke is thick and black, choking you as you work. It mixes with the steam rising from the drying hull. You are working in a cloud of hot, toxic fog. Then you apply the stuff. This is a protective coating, a mixture of tallow, animal fat, sulfur, and tar. It is hot, sticky, and foul-smelling. You slather it onto the planks with mops made of sheepskin or old rags. The sulfur turns the hull white or yellow. You are essentially painting the bottom of the ship with grease to make it slippery so it can cut through the water faster. But while you are doing this, you are vulnerable. This is the pirate's nightmare. Your ship is lying on its side, helpless. The guns are pointing at the sky or the sand, completely useless. If a British frigate were to round the point right now, you would be slaughtered. You wouldn't even be able to run. You are trapped on a beach, exposed and defenseless.
So half the crew works on the hull, sweating in the heat, while the other half stands guard in the jungle. They swelter in the underbrush, muskets ready, watching the horizon. The paranoia is intense. Every bird cry sounds like a signal. Every rustle of the wind sounds like a sail. You work with one ear cocked for the alarm bell. And then there are the insects. The mangroves are not just trees, they are breeding grounds for misery. The air is filled with clouds of mosquitoes and sandflies, no-see-ums. They are tiny, invisible tormentors that bite exposed flesh, leaving welts that itch for days. Because your hands are covered in tar and grease, you cannot swat them. You just have to let them bite. Your face swells, your eyelids puff up. At night, the sound of their buzzing is a constant, high-pitched drone that makes sleep impossible. You wrap your head in a blanket to escape them, but then you suffocate in the heat. There is no escape. This careening process takes weeks. You live in a temporary camp on the beach, sleeping under sailcloth tents. The sand gets into your food. The crabs scuttle over your face while you sleep. The water in the casks, now sitting in the sun, grows even greener and more alive. During this time, the social structure of the pirate crew is tested. On the ship, there is a rhythm. On the beach, there is only heat and boredom and itching. Tempers flare. A man accuses another of stealing his ration of rum. A fight breaks out in the sand. This time, it isn't stopped. The quartermaster watches as two men circle each other with knives. It is a release of tension. One man falls, bleeding into the white sand. The surgeon patches him up with dirty bandages. The winner gets the loser's rum. It is a brutal, primitive justice. Finally, the first side is done. The hull is white and smooth. You reverse the process. You disconnect the ropes, let the ship splash back upright, turn her around, and heave her down on the other side. You do it all over again. More scraping, more burning, more tar. By the time the ship is righted, reloaded, and ready to sail, you are exhausted in a way that goes down to your bones. You are covered in bites, burns, and tar, but as the sloop catches the wind and heads back out into the open ocean, you feel the difference immediately. She is alive again. She cuts through the swell effortlessly. The sluggishness is gone. You are fast again. And in this world, speed is the only thing that keeps you from the hangman's noose. But nature has one more card to play. You have survived the battle. You have survived the disease. You have survived the back-breaking labor of careening. Now, looking at the sky to the southeast, you see a color you do not want to see. The horizon is not blue. It is a bruised, sickly purple. The air pressure drops so suddenly your ears pop. The wind, which was steady, suddenly dies completely, leaving the sails flapping.
The ocean's surface becomes oily and smooth, undulating with a deep, heavy swell that seems to come from nowhere. The birds are gone. The sky turns a peculiar, metallic yellow. The captain screams the order, his voice cutting through the eerie silence. "Strike the topmasts, secure the guns, batten down the hatches." It is not a ship you are fighting now. It is the Atlantic hurricane season, and there is nowhere to hide.
The wind does not begin as a breeze. It arrives as a solid wall of force. One moment the air is still and heavy. The next, the world is screaming. You have been told to strike the topmasts, to physically dismantle the upper sections of the masts and lower them to the deck to reduce the leverage of the wind. It is a desperate race against physics. You are 40 feet in the air, clinging to a spar that is whipping back and forth like a metronome gone mad. The rain hits you horizontally, stinging like birdshot. It is not just water, it is salt spray, ripped from the surface of the ocean and hurled into the sky. The boundary between sea and air has vanished. It is all just a gray, churning chaos. You slide down the backstay, your hands burning, just as the full fury of the gale strikes. The ship, which usually rides the waves, is now being beaten by them. A wooden vessel is flexible, it has to be, but now it is twisting in ways that defy geometry. You can see the deck planks working, sliding against each other. The pitch in the seams cracks. The ship is groaning, a deep, resonant sound of timber in agony, louder than the thunder. "Batten down!" This is the order that seals your fate. The hatches, the only way in or out of the lower decks, are covered with heavy canvas tarpaulins. Wooden battens are nailed over the edges to make them watertight. You are being sealed inside a coffin. The captain and a skeleton crew remain on deck, lashed to the wheel and the masts, trying to keep the bow into the wind. If the ship turns broadside or broaches to, the waves will roll her over and she will sink in seconds. You are ordered below. The darkness is absolute. The lanterns have been extinguished. Fire in a storm is a death sentence. You are packed into the hold with 80 other terrified men. The air instantly becomes hot, foul, and suffocating. But it is the sound that breaks you. Inside the hull, the noise of the ocean is amplified. It sounds like giant sledgehammers are smashing against the outside of the wood, inches from your head. Boom, shudder, boom, shudder. The ship climbs a wave, angling upward at 45 degrees. You slide across the floor, crashing into barrels and other men. Then she crests the wave and falls. The free fall lasts for a sickening second. Your stomach rises into your throat before she slams into the trough with a jarring crash that rattles your teeth. Water sprays in through the invisible cracks in the ceiling. The deck above is awash. They are underwater up there. Then comes the terror of the loose cannon. It is the pirate's worst nightmare during a storm. The cannons weigh thousands of pounds. They are lashed to the sides of the ship with heavy ropes, but the violence of the roll can snap a rope. If a cannon breaks loose, it becomes a juggernaut. It rolls across the deck, crushing legs, smashing through bulkheads, and potentially punching a hole through the other side of the hull, sinking the ship from the inside. You hear men shouting, scrambling in the dark with crowbars and wedges, praying that the lashings hold. Every time the ship rolls, you listen for the telltale rumble of iron wheels on wood. You do not sleep. You cannot sleep. You brace yourself between a knee of the ship and a crate,
muscles locked in a permanent spasm to keep from being thrown. You vomit, not from sickness, but from the sheer violence of the motion. The bilge water sloshes up through the floorboards, soaking you in filth.
Suddenly, the motion changes. The ship heels over to the starboard side and stays there. She doesn't roll back. She is on her beam ends. The wind has pushed her so far over that the yard arms are dipping into the water. This is the moment of death. The water is pouring into the hatchways, despite the tarpaulins. The men around you begin to scream or pray or simply whimper in the dark. You are walking on the walls now. The floor is a vertical slope. Above deck, the captain makes the ultimate decision. He grabs an axe. He hacks at the shrouds, the thick ropes holding the mainmast. Then he hacks at the mast itself. With a terrifying crack, the mainmast gives way. It topples into the boiling sea, dragging the sails and rigging with it. The ship shudders. Relieved of the top-heavy weight, she slowly, painfully rights herself. She is upright again, but she is a cripple. She is dismasted, a drifting hulk. The storm rages for 2 days. 2 days of total darkness. 2 days of tumbling in a washing machine of vomit and bilge water. You lose all sense of time. You exist only in the interval between waves. When the hatch is finally pried open, the light hurts your eyes. The air that rushes in is cool and sweet, shocking your lungs. You climb out onto the deck, your legs shaking so badly you can barely stand. The world has changed. The ocean is still heaving with a massive, oily swell, but the wind has died. The sky is a brilliant, innocent blue. But the ship is a wreck. The rails are smashed. The boats are gone, washed away. The rigging hangs in tangled knots. And the silence is the loudest thing you have ever heard. You look around at the survivors. They are gray-faced, hollow-eyed ghosts. No one speaks. There is no bravado left. The ocean has reminded you that you are not the masters of this domain. You are trespassers. But there is no time for trauma. The quartermaster sounds the call. The pumps! Look alive! The straining of the hull has popped the oakum from the seams. The ship is taking on water fast. You drag your exhausted body to the pump handles. You are dehydrated, starving and bruised, but you pump. You pump the clear blue Atlantic Ocean out of your rotting wooden home. This is the reality of the adventure. You have survived the storm, but you are now drifting in the middle of a vast ocean with no mainmast, limited water, and a hull that leaks like a sieve. You are hundreds of miles from land. The nearest port is British-controlled, where a hangman waits. And as you pump, staring at the empty horizon, you realize something terrifying. The water supply was on the deck. The casks were lashed to the mainmast. When the mast went overboard, so did most of the fresh water. Thirst, that will be the next horror. The sun returns. After the violence of the storm, you might have expected the sun to be a comfort, but on a crippled ship in the middle of the Atlantic, it is a weapon. With the mainmast gone and the sails shredded, there is no shade. The deck is a flat, open griddle exposed to the direct, searing gaze of the tropical sky. The heat rises in shimmering waves from the wood. The pitch in the deck seams, which had cracked in the storm, now bubbles and melts, sticking to your bare feet like hot tar. But the heat is secondary. The heat is merely the oven.
The lack of water is the fire. The inventory has been taken. The news has whispered through the crew like a curse. 3 casks of water remain. 80 men, thousands of miles to land. The math is simple and it is fatal. The quartermaster, the only man on board whose authority still holds weight in this desperate hour, stands by the remaining water barrels. He holds a brace of loaded pistols. He does not sleep. He knows that thirst turns men into animals faster than hunger ever could. Your ration is set. 1 cup, not a mug, not a tankard, but a small tin cup, half filled, once a day. That is all. The first day is manageable. You are thirsty, yes, but your body has reserves. You work to rig a jury mast. This involves taking a spare spar, perhaps the boom or a yardarm saved from the wreckage, and lashing it to the stump of the broken mainmast. It is heavy, brutally hard work. You heave on the ropes, your muscles screaming, sweat pouring off you. This is the tragic irony. To save yourself, you must work, but to work, you must sweat, and to sweat is to lose the precious fluid you cannot replace. By the 3rd day, the reality of your biology begins to dismantle your mind. It starts with your mouth. The saliva thickens, turning into a sticky white paste. Then it stops altogether. Your tongue swells. It feels too big for your mouth, a dry, fuzzy object that scrapes against the roof of your palate like a piece of wool. You cannot speak clearly. Your words come out as croaks and grunts. You cannot eat the hardtack. The biscuit is dry as dust. Without saliva, it is impossible to swallow. It sits in your mouth, sucking the last moisture from your gums, turning into a choking powder. So you stop eating. The headache sets in behind your eyes, a dull, rhythmic thumping that matches your heartbeat. Your blood is thickening. It is becoming sludge, struggling to push through your veins. You feel lethargic, heavy, as if you were moving underwater. You sit in the sliver of shade provided by the bulwark, staring at the ocean. And the ocean stares back. This is the psychological torture of the shipwrecked sailor. You are floating on water. It is everywhere. It is clear, cool, and inviting. It laps against the hull, splash, splash, mocking you. You dip a bucket to cool your head, and the water looks like diamonds. You want to drink it. Your body screams at you to drink it. You have seen what happens to men who drink the seawater. There is always one who breaks. He sneaks a cup when the quartermaster isn't looking, or he leans over the rail at night. At first, he looks relieved. The water is cool, but the salt is a poison. It draws the water out of your cells to dilute the salt in your stomach. It accelerates the dehydration. Within hours, the man is retching, convulsing. Then the madness comes. He starts babbling, seeing things that aren't there. He screams about green fields, about rivers of wine. Then his kidneys fail, and he dies in agony. You watch this, and you lick your cracked lips, and you still want to drink the water. By the 5th day, the ship is a floating asylum. The jury mast is up, carrying a small scrap of sail, pushing you along at a crawling pace of 2 knots. It is not enough. You are drifting. The silence is broken only by the mumbling of delirious men. You look at your arms. The skin has lost its elasticity. If you pinch it, it stays pinched, a ridge of gray flesh that refuses to flatten. Your eyes are sunken deep into your skull, dark hollows in a gaunt face. You have stopped sweating. This is a danger signal. Your body has no water left to give up to cool you down. Your internal temperature begins to rise. You start to hallucinate. This is called the calenture. It is a specific madness of the sea. You look out at the undulating blue waves, and your broken brain rewrites the data. You don't see water anymore. You see rolling green hills. You see meadows of tall grass blowing in the wind. It looks so solid, so soft. You see a farmhouse with a well. You see your mother standing there with a bucket of cold milk.
"I'm going home," a man next to you whispers. He stands up, a strange smile on his cracked lips. He walks to the rail. "Don't," you croak, but you don't have the strength to stop him. He steps off the rail and into the ocean, thinking he is stepping into a meadow. The splash is small. He doesn't struggle. He just sinks, waiting for the grass to catch him. The sharks, which are always there, grateful for the easy meal, take him before he drowns. You watch it happen with a detached, numb curiosity. You are too tired to mourn. Then a shadow falls over the deck. It is not night. It is a cloud. You look up, your neck creaking with the effort. A dark gray bruise has formed in the pristine sky. A squall. The reaction is instantaneous and pathetic. 80 dying men scramble. You grab anything that can hold water, the canvas tarpaulins, the empty buckets, your hat, your boots. You spread the canvas out on the deck, holding up the corners with trembling hands. "Please," you whisper, "please." The rain begins. It is not a gentle shower. It is a tropical deluge. Big, heavy drops slam into the deck. Plat, plat, plat. Then a roar. You open your mouth to the sky, letting the drops hit your swollen tongue. It is the most exquisite sensation you have ever felt. It tastes of dust and sky, but it is life. The water pools in the dirty canvas. It mixes with the salt spray, the tar, the grime of 80 unwashed men, and the dried blood from the battle weeks ago. It is a brown, sludge-like cocktail, and you drink it greedily. You scoop it up with your hands, with your boots. You shove your face into the puddle on the tarpaulin, sucking it up like a beast. The quartermaster shouts orders to fill the casks, but for the first few minutes there is no discipline. There is only the frantic slurping sound of survival. The squall lasts for 20 minutes. Then, as quickly as it came, it passes. The sun comes back out, instantly steaming the wet deck. But the casks are a quarter full. You have a reprieve. You are not saved, but you are not dead yet. You lie back on the damp wood, your stomach cramping from the sudden influx of water. You feel the fluid moving into your blood, thinning the sludge, waking up your brain. The headache recedes slightly, the hope returns, and with it, the fear. You are still 1,000 miles from nowhere, on a broken ship with a crew of killers who have just remembered they want to live. And now that the thirst is quenched, the hunger begins to gnaw. The rats in the hold are starting to look less like vermin and more like dinner. The rain has bought you time, but it has not bought you comfort. The water in the casks is brown and brackish, tasting of the tarpaulin and the sweat of the men who collected it, but it keeps your blood flowing. However, as the thirst recedes, the hunger, which had been masking itself behind the panic of dehydration, steps forward to take center stage. Starvation is different from thirst. Thirst is a frantic, screaming alarm in your brain. Starvation is a slow, cold hollowing out. It is a quiet process. The body, realizing it is not being fed, begins to eat itself. It starts with the fat reserves, which on a hard-working pirate are already low. Then it moves to the muscle. Your arms, once thick from hauling ropes, begin to wither. Your ribs protrude like the hull timbers of a wreck. You feel a constant, dull ache in your belly, a cramping void that nothing can fill. The ship's stores are examined again with the desperation of archaeologists looking for a lost civilization. The bread room is opened, the barrels of hardtack are overturned, but there is nothing but dust. The weevils have done their work thoroughly. In the past, you tapped the biscuit to knock the bugs out. Now you scoop up the dust, bugs and all, and mix it with a little water to make a gray, flavorless paste. It is pure protein provided by the insects. You eat it without complaint. Then the eyes of the crew turn to the other inhabitants of the ship, the rats. For months, the rats have been the enemy. They ate your provisions, gnawed on your ropes, and bit your toes while you slept. Now they are livestock. The hunt begins in the dark recesses of the hold. It is not a sport, it is a desperate scramble. Men with marlin spikes and wooden clubs crawl through the bilges, listening for the scratch of claws. A caught rat is a prize of immense value. In the twisted economy of a starving ship, a fresh rat is worth more than a Spanish doubloon. You see men trading their future shares of gold, trading their pistols, trading their boots, all for a single scrawny rodent. There is no wood to spare for a cooking fire. The rat is skinned, its pelt tossed aside, or saved to chew on later, and the meat is eaten raw. It is stringy, gamey, and tough. It tastes of the foul things the rat has eaten, rotten wood and bilge slime. But to your starving body, the taste of blood and meat is ecstatic. You crack the small bones with your teeth to suck out the marrow. You leave nothing. When the rats are gone, or hiding too deep to be found, you look at your clothing. Leather is technically organic matter. It is cow skin. You take off your belt. You take off your boots if you still have them. You cut the leather into strips and soak them in the water bucket to soften them. Then you boil them in the single iron pot allowed on the brazier. The leather never truly becomes soft. It turns into a gummy, rubbery slab of collagen. You chew it for hours. It has no flavor, but the act of chewing tricks your stomach into thinking it is being fed. Your jaw aches from the effort, but you swallow the chunks of boiled boot, hoping your stomach acid can break down the tannins used to cure the hide. The lethargy returns. The ship is silent. 80 men are lying in the shade of the jury-rigged sail, saving every calorie. The silence is broken only by the sound of the ocean and the occasional groan of a stomach. The discipline of the articles begins to fray at the edges. You watch your neighbor. Does he look healthier than you? Is he hiding food? Paranoia sets in. If a man moves his hand to his pocket, 3 other men flinch, hands going to their knives. Then, a miracle. It is not a merchant ship. It is not land. It is a shape floating on the surface of the water, resembling a wet rock, a sea turtle. Sea turtles were the lifeline of the Caribbean. They were the reason pirates could survive for months without returning to port. A large green turtle can weigh 300 pounds. It can live on the deck of a ship for weeks without food or water, staying fresh until it is needed. They are living canned goods. But catching one from a moving ship is not easy. You cannot shoot it, it will sink. You have to snag it. A striker, usually a Mosquito Indian or a skilled hunter among the crew, moves to the bowsprit. He holds a long pole with a barbed iron head. The ship drifts closer. The turtle is asleep on the surface, basking in the sun. The silence on the deck is absolute. 80 men hold their breath. If the turtle dives, you starve. The striker throws. The iron barb strikes the shell. It doesn't penetrate deep, but it holds. The turtle wakes up, thrashing in the water, its flippers beating the foam. "Haul away!"
Weak arms find sudden strength. You pull on the line. The massive creature is hauled up the side of the hull, scraping against the wood, and flipped onto the deck with a heavy thud. It lies on its back, hissing, its yellow plastron facing the sky.
The butchery is immediate and gruesome. There is no time for sentiment. The shell is cracked open with axes. The first prize is the blood. In a starving, dehydrated crew, the blood is a vital source of fluid and salt. It is collected in the communal kid. It is warm, metallic, and thick. You get your ration, a few ounces. You drink it down. It paints your lips red, making the crew look like ghouls. Then the meat. There is so much of it. The turtle is dismantled. The calapash, the green fat, and the calapee, the yellow fat, are prized. The meat is cut into strips. Because you are starving, you cannot eat too much at once, or your stomach will rebel and you will vomit, wasting the precious fuel. The quartermaster stands guard, ensuring no one takes more than their share. This is the ultimate test of the pirate democracy, the fair distribution of life itself. You eat the turtle meat raw or seared for seconds on the hot iron of the cannon barrel sitting in the sun. It tastes like the finest beef you have ever had. It tastes like salvation. With the protein comes a return of the senses. The brain fog lifts. You look around the horizon with clear eyes for the first time in weeks, and you notice something. The water. For weeks, the ocean has been a deep, inky indigo, the color of the abyss, the color of water that is miles deep. But now, as you look over the rail, the color has shifted. It is lighter. It is a vibrant teal, streaked with turquoise. And there is debris. Not wreckage, but natural debris. A coconut husk bobbing in the swell. A branch of driftwood with green leaves still attached. And birds. Not the soaring albatross of the deep ocean, but a frigate bird, a land bird. It circles the mast, watching you. "Sounding," the captain orders. A sailor moves to the rail with the lead line. This is a long rope with a heavy lead weight at the end. The bottom of the weight is hollowed out and filled with tallow, fat. He swings the lead in a circle and heaves it forward. The rope runs out through his hands. Mark 5, Mark 10. Usually the line runs out forever, but this time it stops. The line goes slack. "Bottom!" the sailor screams. "Bottom at 20 fathoms!" He hauls the line up. The crew crowds around. He inspects the tallow at the bottom of the weight. Stuck to the sticky fat are grains of white sand and crushed shell. You are over the shelf. You have found the shallows. Land is near. But in the world of piracy, land is not always a blessing. Land means reefs that can tear the bottom out of your already crippled ship. Land means the British Navy might be waiting in the harbor. Land means the illusion of safety, but potentially the reality of the gallows. The captain studies the sand on the lead. He tastes it. He looks at the color of the water. Bahamas, or the Keys. He looks at the crew, ragged, starving, half-mad skeletons covered in sores and turtle blood. "Clean the guns," he orders, "because if there is land, there are people, and if there are people, you will need to take what they have to survive. The horror isn't over, it's just moving to a new location." The transition from the deep ocean to the shallows is a transition from one form of anxiety to another. In the open sea, you fear the vastness and the weather. Here, in the turquoise shallows of the Bahamas, you fear the geometry of the bottom. The water is so clear it induces vertigo. Looking over the rail, you can see the white sand 40 feet down, rippled by the currents. But scattered across that sand are the coral heads, massive brain-like boulders of rock and living polyp that rise up like jagged teeth. Your ship is a cripple. With only the jury-rigged mast and a shred of sail, she steers poorly. She is sluggish to turn. The lookout at the bow is screaming directions back to the helmsman. "Starboard! Hard a starboard! Rocks awash!" You hold your breath. You watch the dark shadow of a coral head glide past the hull, missing the wood by mere inches. If you strike it now, after surviving the battle, the sickness and the storm, the irony will be fatal. The coral will tear the bottom out of the ship as easily as a knife through wet paper. The ship will lock on to the reef, and the surf will pound it to pieces in hours. But the channel opens up. The water turns a darker, safer blue. Ahead, a strip of white sand separates the ocean from the dense green tangle of the jungle. A few columns of thin gray smoke rise from the trees. This is not a city. It is not a port in the civilized sense. It is a maroon, a temporary illegal settlement of logwood cutters, runaway slaves, and fellow brethren of the coast. The anchor is let go. Splash. The heavy cable runs out. Rumble, rumble, rumble. And for the first time in months, the ship stops. It does not roll. It does not pitch. It sits, heavy and still, swinging gently on the tide. The silence that follows is profound. The creaking of the timbers, the constant groaning of the wood that has been the soundtrack of your life simply ceases. The longboat is lowered. You climb down the side, your legs weak. You row toward the beach. The air here smells different. It smells of hot sand, decomposing leaves and wood smoke. It is a rich, heavy, earthy smell that makes your head spin. Then the moment of impact. The boat grinds onto the sand. You step out. You expect relief. Instead, you feel nausea. The ground is solid, but your inner ear is still at sea. The earth seems to heave and roll beneath your feet. You stumble. You stagger like a drunkard, even though you haven't had a drop of rum in weeks. This is land sickness. Your body has adapted so perfectly to the motion of the ocean that stillness now feels unnatural. You have to spread your legs wide to keep your balance on the unmoving beach. You walk up the beach past the high tide line. The sand is hot, burning your calloused feet. The vegetation is blindingly green. After months of blue and gray, the color hurts your eyes. The settlement is a collection of hovels made from palm fronds, driftwood, and pieces of old sailcloth. It is squalid. There are pigs rooting in the dirt. There are men sleeping in the shade, cradling muskets. They watch you approach with suspicion. In this world, there are no friends, only potential rivals. But then they see the condition of your ship, the gauntness of your faces, and the lack of aggressive posturing. They relax. You are not invaders. You are customers. The captain and the quartermaster go to meet the local factor. This is the fence. He is a man who lives on the edge of the empire, buying stolen goods for pennies on the dollar to sell to corrupt merchants in Charleston or New York. The negotiations take hours. You and the crew sit in the shade of a sea grape tree, waiting. You are given fresh water, sweet, cold spring water that doesn't taste of algae. You drink until your stomach hurts. A local woman sells you a roasted iguana on a stick. It tastes like chicken, smoky and greasy. You eat it with a reverence usually reserved for religious sacraments. Finally, the deal is done. The stolen sugar, the cocoa, the few bales of tobacco that weren't ruined by the seawater, it is all sold. The quartermaster returns with a small chest. It is time for the divide. This is the moment the entire enterprise was built for. The crew gathers in a circle in the sand. The articles are read aloud one last time to ensure everyone remembers the rules. The captain gets 2 shares. The quartermaster, surgeon, and carpenter get 1.5 shares. The rest of you get 1 share. The quartermaster opens the chest. He counts out the coins, Spanish pieces of 8, Portuguese moedoras, French pistoles. It is a confusing mix of international currency. He calls your name. You step forward. He places a small pile of silver and gold into your dirty, trembling hands. You look at it. It is heavy. It is shiny. It is real. But then you do the math in your head. You count the coins. Converted to English pounds, it amounts to perhaps 25 pounds. 25 pounds. For this, you have pumped bilge water for 2,000 hours. For this, you have eaten rats. For this, you have lost your teeth to scurvy. For this, you have killed men you didn't know. For this, you have watched your friends die of gangrene. In London, a gentleman might spend 25 pounds on a single suit of clothes. A skilled carpenter could earn this in a year of honest work, sleeping in a bed every night. A hollow feeling settles in your chest. The myth of the pirate treasure is just that, a myth. Most pirates did not get rich. They scraped by, earning just enough to keep going, just enough to buy a few weeks of freedom before the money ran out and they had to return to the sea. But you don't say this aloud. You clutch the coins. They represent survival. They represent a bath. They represent a bottle of brandy that isn't watered down. The crew disperses into the settlement. The fun begins immediately, and this is where the tragedy compounds. You have been deprived of dopamine for months. Your brain is starved for pleasure. Now, with money in your pocket, you have no impulse control. Makeshift taverns have been set up in tents. Barrels of rum are tapped. The prices are extortionate. The locals know you have money and that you are desperate to spend it. A bottle of rum that costs a shilling in Jamaica costs 10 shillings here. You pay it without blinking. Gambling tables are set up on inverted barrels. Dice rattle. Cards are shuffled. Men who just risked their lives together now scream at each other over a toss of the bones. You watch a crewmate, a man who saved your life during the storm, bet his entire share on a single hand of cards. He loses. In 5 seconds, 6 months of hell are rendered meaningless. He stares at the table, empty-handed. He laughs, a manic, broken sound. He has nothing left. He will have to sign on to another ship tomorrow. He is trapped in the cycle. Night falls on the island. The air is filled with the sounds of drunken singing, fighting, and the crackle of bonfires. You find a spot on the sand, away from the noise. You lay your head on your sea bag. The ground still feels like it is rocking. You close your eyes, clutching your small bag of coins. You have survived the sea. You have survived the battle. You have survived the hunger. But now you have to survive the peace.
And looking at the desperate, drunken men around you, you realize that this might be the hardest part of all. You are a criminal with a price on your head, hiding in a swamp, with enough money to drink yourself to death, but not enough to start a new life. You drift off to sleep, not to the sound of waves, but to the sound of mosquitoes buzzing in your ear, dreaming of a home you can never go back to.
You wake up. The sensation is not one of refreshment, but of resurrection. You are lying face down in the sand. The sun is already high, beating down on your neck with a physical weight. Your mouth tastes of copper and ash. You try to move, and a wave of nausea rolls through you, so violent that you simply lie back down and close your eyes. The sound of the ocean, once a comforting rhythm, is now a pounding hammer inside your skull. Thud, thud, thud. This is the black dog. The hangover of the 18th century is a different beast from the modern one. You were not drinking refined spirits. You were drinking Kill Devil, a raw, potent rum distilled in lead pipes, often mixed with gunpowder, chili peppers, or whatever else would give it a kick. It is poison. Your liver is swollen. Your hands are shaking with a tremor that will not stop until you have another drink. This is the dependency loop. You drink to forget the misery of the ship, and the drink makes you too sick to do anything but drink again. You sit up, brushing the sand from your face. You check your pockets. They are empty. The small bag of silver, the reward for 6 months of hell, is gone. Did you spend it? Did you gamble it away? Was it stolen while you slept in a stupor on the beach? It doesn't matter. The result is the same. You are destitute. You are a pauper in paradise. You look around the encampment. It is a scene of devastation. The tents are sagging. Men are passed out in the shade of the palm trees, looking more like corpses than sleepers. A few are awake, staring blankly at the sea, nursing the same emptiness you feel. The euphoria of the arrival is gone, replaced by a grim, silent depression. You realize now that the shore is a trap, just as the ship was a prison. The prices here are rigged. The women, the tavern keepers, the merchants, they are the true pirates. They know you cannot leave. They know you cannot go to a lawful city, so they bleed you dry. You are merely a conduit, moving gold from Spanish galleons into the pockets of squatter merchants on a sandy quay. You stand up, your knees popping. You walk to the water's edge to wash your face. You catch your reflection in a tidal pool. You are horrified. You are 26 years old, but the man staring back at you is 50. Your skin is leathery, cracked, and deeply wrinkled from the sun. Your hair is matted and receding. Your teeth are yellow stumps or gone entirely, leaving your cheeks sunken. You have a scar running down your forehead that never quite healed properly. You look feral. You look like a monster. If you walked down a street in London or Bristol now, mothers would hide their children. You have been fundamentally altered by this life. You are no longer compatible with civilization. As you stare at your ruined face, a sound cuts through the humid air. It is not the cry of a bird, nor the shout of a drunkard. It is the deep, authoritative boom of a cannon. Not a warning shot, a signal. The camp wakes up. Panic, instant and electric, surge through the crowd.
Men grab their muskets. You scramble toward the ridge to look out at the harbor. There, entering the bay, is a ship, but it is not a merchant vessel to be plundered. It is sleek. It is massive. It towers over your pitiful sloop. Its hull is painted a crisp, authoritative yellow and black, and flying from the stern is the white ensign, the Royal Navy. "Frigate!" someone screams. "It's a king's ship!" The instinct is to run, to flee into the jungle, but there is nowhere to go. This is an island, and your ship is still half unloaded, the crew half drunk, the cannons unmanned. You are caught. But the frigate does not fire. It does not turn broadside to unleash a broadside of destruction. Instead, it drops anchor with a calm, practiced discipline. A longboat is lowered. It is rowed toward the beach with perfect synchronization. Stroke, stroke, stroke. In the stern sits an officer in a blue coat with gold braid, looking stiff and sweltering in the heat. He does not bring a sword, he brings a scroll. He steps onto the beach, flanked by Marines in red coats. The contrast is striking. They are clean, shaved, and uniform. You and your crew are filthy, ragged, and chaotic. It is order meeting entropy.
The officer unrolls the parchment. He does not shout. He projects his voice with the arrogance of a man backed by the most powerful navy on earth. "By order of His Majesty, King George," he announces, "a royal proclamation." This is the historical turning point. This is the end of the Golden Age. It is 1718, and Woodes Rogers has arrived in the Bahamas. "All pirates who surrender themselves voluntarily," the officer reads, "and take the oath of allegiance shall receive a full and gracious pardon for all piracies committed before this date. You shall be free men. You may keep your property. You may settle here as law-abiding subjects." He pauses, letting the words sink in. "Those who refuse," he continues, his voice hardening, "will be hunted down. You will be taken, and you will be hanged by the neck until dead. There will be no quarter." Silence descends on the beach. This is the king's pardon. It is a masterstroke of psychological warfare. The British government realized it was too expensive to hunt you all down. It is cheaper to forgive you if you stop. A murmur runs through the crowd. You look at your crewmates. You see the conflict in their eyes. To accept the pardon is to admit defeat. It is to go back to being a poor sailor, a laborer, a nobody. It means giving up the dream of the big prize. It means bowing your head to the authority you swore to fight. But to refuse means war against the entire world. It means you can never rest. It means every sail on the horizon is a death sentence. It means you will die screaming. The crew begins to fracture. "I'm taking it," whispers the carpenter. "I'm done. I want to sleep in a bed." He steps forward, dropping his axe in the sand. He walks toward the officer. "Coward!" screams the gunner. "You'd trust a king's word? They'll hang you anyway." Arguments break out. Fists fly. The unity of the pirate crew, forged in blood and storms, shatters in an instant. The democracy dissolves into factions. You stand in the middle, your head throbbing, the sun burning your skin. You look at the officer, cool and detached. You look at the jungle, hot and full of mosquitoes. You look at your ship, a rotting tub that nearly killed you 10 times over. You have no money. You have no health. You have no future on the sea. But there is a part of you,
the part that survived the lashings, the hunger and the fear, that recoils at the idea of submission? Can you really go back to bowing and scraping? Can you go back to earning £6 a year? The captain of your sloop steps forward. He is a hard man, a man who has killed more people than you have teeth. He looks at the officer. He spits into the sand. "We sail with the tide," the captain growls to those standing near him. "Any man who stays is a traitor." He turns and walks back toward the longboat. Now you must choose. Do you walk toward the clean officer and the promise of a boring, poverty-stricken life of safety? Or do you get back into the boat with the madman to sail a broken ship against the might of the British Empire, knowing for a fact that the story only ends one way? You look at your hands. They are trembling. You look at the ship. You realize that you are afraid to live, but you are also afraid to die. You take a step.
You take a step. It is a step toward the water. You turn your back on the officer in the crisp blue coat, on the promise of the pardon, on the chance to live as a beggar in a safe harbor. You walk toward the longboat where the captain stands, his hand on the tiller, his eyes burning with a defiance that borders on insanity. Why do you do it? Is it loyalty? No. Is it hope? No. It is simply that you are ruined. You know deep in your gut that you cannot exist in their world anymore. You cannot bow. You cannot scrub floors for a merchant who despises you. You are a creature of the sea now, warped by the salt and the blood. You choose the devil you know. About 30 of you return to the ship. The rest, the carpenter, the musicians, the boys, stay on the beach, their heads bowed, accepting the king's mercy. As you row away, you watch them diminishing in the distance. You feel a pang of jealousy, mixed with contempt. They are safe. You are free. And you are doomed. The months that follow are a slow, grinding descent into nightmare. The Golden Age is over. The arrival of the Royal Navy has changed the physics of the ocean. You are no longer the hunters. You are the prey. The easy prizes, the fat merchant ships, are gone. They now sail in convoys, protected by warships. You are forced to hunt scraps. You attack small fishing boats, stealing their nets and their catch. You attack coastal villages, stealing chickens and pigs. You are not kings of the sea. You are bandits of the shore. The ship is falling apart. Without the carpenter, repairs are amateur and desperate. You patch leaks with canvas and tar, but the water keeps rising in the bilge. The hull is rotting. The sails are gray rags. The ship smells of decay. And the mood on board has curdled. The democracy is dead. The captain, knowing that the noose is waiting for him, becomes a tyrant. He sleeps with a brace of pistols across his chest. He trusts no one. He sees mutiny in every whisper. If a man looks at him the wrong way, he is flogged. The lash, which you once joined this life to escape, has returned. You sail north, fleeing the Caribbean summer, seeking colder, darker waters where the Navy might not follow. You end up off the coast of the Carolinas. It is bleak and gray. The fog sits heavy on the water. One night, the inevitable happens. It is not a battle. It is a betrayal. You are anchored in a secluded inlet, hiding. The rum is gone. The food is gone. You are gnawing on the leather of your belt again. A dispute breaks out over a stolen bottle of wine. Screams echo in the fog. And then, out of the mist, they come. 2 sloops, hired pirate hunters. They were guided here. Someone talked. Maybe it was one of the men who took the pardon.
Maybe it was a local fisherman you robbed. It doesn't matter. There is no clear for action. There is no time. They are upon you before the alarm is raised. The first broadside tears through your rotting hull like a shotgun through a rotten pumpkin. Wood splinters scream through the air. You are thrown across the deck, your head striking a cannon carriage. The world spins. You try to stand, reaching for your cutlass, but your hand is slippery with blood, your own. They board. These are not terrified merchant sailors. These are hard men, paid a bounty for your head. They swarm the deck. You see the captain, the man who defied an empire, cornered by the mainmast. He fires his pistols, misses, and is cut down by 3 men at once. He falls into the scuppers, just another piece of debris. You fight, you swing your blade, but you are weak from hunger, slow from scurvy. A heavy blow from a musket butt strikes you in the ribs. You hear the crack of bone. You fall. A boot lands on your chest, pinning you to the deck. A sword point hovers over your throat. "Yield!" a voice screams. "Yield, damn you!" You drop your sword. You raise your hands. The fight is over in 10 minutes. The surviving crew, perhaps 15 of you, are stripped, bound with heavy ropes, and thrown into the hold of the hunter's ship. You are not treated as prisoners of war. You are treated as cargo, livestock. The journey to the trial is a blur of darkness and pain. You are chained to a ringbolt in the floor. You sit in your own filth. The wound in your head throbs. You are given water, just enough to keep you alive for the spectacle.
You arrive in Charleston, or maybe it is Williamsburg or Port Royal. The city doesn't matter. They are all the same: brick buildings, cobblestone streets, and crowds of people who hate you. You are dragged from the ship in chains. The sunlight hurts your eyes. The crowd jeers. They throw rotten vegetables, mud, and stones. To them, you are a monster. They don't see the starving, desperate man. They see the villain from the broadsheet newspapers. They see the reason their shipping insurance rates went up. The trial is a farce. It is held in a humidity-soaked courtroom. The Vice Admiralty Court does not use a jury. A judge sits high on a bench, wearing a white wig that looks ridiculous in the heat. You are not given a lawyer. You are not allowed to call witnesses. The prosecutor reads the charges: piracy on the high seas, robbery, murder. He holds up the evidence: the stolen logbook, a piece of marked cargo, the testimony of a survivor from one of your victims. "What say you?" the judge asks. You look at him. What can you say? That you were hungry? That you were pressed into service? That you had no choice? It doesn't matter. The law is a machine, and you are the raw material. Guilty. The judge bangs his gavel. You are sentenced to be taken from this place to the place of execution, and there to be hanged by the neck until you are dead, and may God have mercy on your soul. You are taken back to the dungeon. The final wait begins. The night before the execution, a minister comes to your cell. He talks of repentance. He talks of hellfire. You don't listen. You are thinking about the sea. You are thinking about the sound of the wind in the rigging. You are thinking about the taste of the turtle meat. You are thinking about the cold blue silence of the deep. Morning comes. It is a bright, beautiful day, the kind of day that is perfect for sailing. You are placed in a cart, sitting on your own coffin. The procession moves through the streets. The entire town has turned out. Men, women, children. They are eating pies. They are laughing. This is their entertainment.
This is the boring history reality. Your death is a festival. You arrive at the gallows. It is built at the low tide mark on the mudflats. This is symbolic. The Admiralty wants you to die within the jurisdiction of the sea. You climb the ladder. Your hands are tied behind your back. The rope is rough against your neck. It smells of tar, the same tar you smelled on your first day at sea. The executioner is a masked man, or perhaps just a drunkard paid a few coins. He adjusts the knot. He whispers in your ear, "Don't struggle. It's quicker if you don't struggle." You look out at the harbor. You see the ships anchored there. You see the open ocean beyond the breakwater. It looks peaceful. It looks indifferent. It doesn't care that you are dying. It will keep rolling long after you are gone. The crowd goes silent. The marshal reads the warrant one last time. You take a deep breath of the salt air. "Turn him off!" The ladder is kicked away. There is no long drop. There is no instant snapping of the neck. That is a modern invention. In the 18th century, you strangle. You dance the hempen jig. You kick. You gasp. Your vision turns purple, then black. You fight for air, but the rope bites deep. The panic is absolute. And then, nothing. But the story doesn't end with your death. Because you are a pirate, even your corpse is not your own. Your body is cut down, but you are not buried in the churchyard. You are not given a grave. Your body is taken to a blacksmith. He measures you. He heats iron bands in a forge. He rivets a cage around your cooling corpse. This is the gibbet. You are hoisted up on a post at the entrance to the harbor. You are left there, swinging in the wind, encased in iron. You are a warning. You are a scarecrow for sailors. The sun beats down on you. The birds, the gulls, and the crows come. They peck at your eyes. They strip your flesh. The weather beats you. Slowly, over months and years, you turn into a skeleton. The bones bleach white inside the rusty cage. Ships pass you as they enter the port. Sailors look up and point. "There," they say, "that's what happens." You hang there for years. The iron creaks in the wind. Squeak, squeak, squeak. It is the same sound as the ship's rigging. You are still at sea. You never left. This is the life. No gold, no glory, just a short, brutal existence of labor, hunger, and violence, ending in a cage of iron and bone. You wouldn't survive, and honestly, you wouldn't want to.